All right, so we're at my father-in-law's home, and I just need to make sure that we're live. Okay, yep, looks like we're live. Very good. Welcome. Saturday morning. This is David Gilmore, known as LDSPrepper, and Sue Gilmore,
known as the Backyard Herbalist.
And we are glad to be here. Last week we were traveling. We are at my father-in-law's house here in California, and so we were not able to be here with you this last Saturday. So we're glad to be back. We have lots of questions that that we haven't gotten to, but if you are here, please give us a thumbs up. Let us know that you're here and post your questions in the comment section. We will be going to previous questions that we've had before, but we want to answer any live questions that you have at the moment. So if you got a question, please post it there. So we are going to go to the first question. This is from David Peel. And he asks, on my watermelons, I have got plenty of vines, make the female flowers, big leaves. I am hand pollinating. Fruit are there, but very slow in growing. What would you feeding strategy from seed to harvest, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, etc. Thanks for in advance. So I do have some videos here on my YouTube channel at LDSPrepper.com on growing watermelon. We are growing watermelon right now. We've got watermelon in the greenhouse right now. So I just put them in the rows with all the other food, all the other plants that turn into food and produce this food. And I feed them the plant food that we mix with the LDSPrepper Premium Micronutrient Mix, what we call the weekly feed, and we feed it to them weekly. We put down 1 pound of weekly feed per 30-foot row, 18 inches wide. So if you have watermelon, what I try to do is I try to, once I've got fruit set, then I start cutting vines. And you'll see this in my watermelon video. Once I have fruit set, I will cut the vine that goes past that fruit. So I'm actually able to grow, 10 watermelon in maybe a 5 or 6 foot area very, very easily, where normally it would take, 100 square feet to do that. So just make sure you're pruning the watermelon. As far as making it grow faster, watermelon really likes the heat, and so if it's not very hot, it may not grow very fast, and that may be the issue that you're working with. You mentioned this 3 weeks ago. I don't know where you are, David, but maybe just be that there isn't enough UV for the plant to really take off. But once the weather starts getting warmer, then you can expect faster growth. That's been my experience. If you so you already have looks like so it says that you're pollinating by hand, just nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Those are the major nutrients, the 3 major nutrients, but the plant isn't going to grow as fast as it can if it doesn't have all the nutrients. Just like if you only had nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium in your diet, and you were missing all the other essential minerals and nutrients that you need, you would not grow very fast. So you may consider, if you haven't already, to go ahead and go get the LDSPrepper Premium Micronutrient Mix. And you can get that at LDSPrepperstore.com. You can mix that with the nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and then feed your plants weekly. So that's what I would recommend you do if you haven't already, and take a look at the pruning video on watermelon. All right, then Hager's Eden asks, David, have you considered catching water off your greenhouse? Well, I was doing a lot of rain capture in Texas because we had a lot of rain. We are in the high desert in southeast Idaho, and it does not rain very much. I don't think it's rained, well, an inch yet this year. So it's not much water there, so that it doesn't make sense for us to try to capture water off of our greenhouse because it's just not much water to catch there. We are walking distance to the river. We have a well. We have a hand pump on the well. I'm just going to plug some power into the phone here. So we're pretty set up with water. I've got several 30-gallon water barrels. I think 20 filled. I've got 3 275-gallon plastic totes filled with water. So we're pretty good. However, if you are in an area, I apologize for my hand here, that has a good rainfall and that it's legal for you to capture water. I'm just going to put my hand right here while I put the power in, make sure we don't run out of power. Then I would recommend go ahead and capturing water off the greenhouse. We did it off our house in Texas because we had a pretty large house, and I think it was 1 inch of rain capture water. Will you be offering greenhouse classes this year? Not that I'm aware of, but if you're in the area, you're welcome to come by. We have people come by all the time. And if you can bring your friends, family, and neighbors with you, those who are interested in the greenhouse, that would even be better. What we like to do is have people watch the first 3 videos in my video playlist on the geothermal greenhouse before they come, and that will help them quite a bit in understanding what they need to do. So I'm going to switch screens here. So Chris Shiphack asks, is that your helicopter on that post that she posted the video for today? It's actually, yes, it looks like a helicopter. It's called a gyro plane. And I was able to go down to Petaluma earlier this week and fly the gyro plane. That is on my list of things to get this year. So I wanted to make sure that it was a good experience. I've flown a few small planes trying to decide what to buy. I've flown a trike. I've been in a small fixed wing aircraft. I've done hang gliding, and all of those were quite nerve-wracking, actually. And the gyro plane was absolutely calming and serene. It was amazing. And so I am looking forward to getting one of those. The plan is to get a red one to match our vehicle that we just purchased. So because my wife likes red and it'd be fun to match. And I will get that ordered. It'll come out of Germany, pre-built. It'll be shipped over here to California, Petaluma, and I will start taking pilot training. So after about 4 weeks of testing and flight time, I will hopefully, maybe by end of September or so, be flying that back home. I'm looking forward to going to Oshkosh this year at the fly-in, at the it's kind of an experimental or airplane show there. So hopefully if you guys are in that area, end of July, that we'll see you there over at the aerial plane area. Okay. So G. Michael Jr. says, I'm actually growing my first watermelons this year. Can't wait to transplant out into the garden. We've grown several different kinds of watermelon. The ones that we like the most are the little round ones. They're about this big. They're somewhere between 6 and 8 pounds. And we grow them vertically for 2 reasons. Because I like to grow everything vertically that I can, because I get much more yield per square foot. It's all about efficiency and return on investment. And that investment is soil and fertilizer and water and my time and so forth. But it just looks really cool to have 6-pound hanging watermelon in your garden. And we also do the same with cantaloupe. We do the same with our squashes. So when you walk through, it's like all this fruit is just, hanging everywhere. It's big. With a 6-pound fruit, we typically will support that fruit, watermelon, but we know when they're ripe because they actually just slip off the vine, and we'll go out there in the morning and they'll be on the ground. Some of them will break, some of them won't. And then we let them ripen for a day or two, and then we eat them. So watermelon is one of our favorites. How much for one of those gyrocopters? The one I'm looking at is $200,000, probably another $10,000 or $20,000 in flight time and instruction. So somewhere around there. Let's see. Type of fuel does it take? So yeah, it will take regular fuel, just like you could drive up to a gas station and fill it up. When I tested it this earlier this week, they were putting in airplane fuel because that's what they had at the Petaluma Municipal Airport. Let's see. Ever thought about making a robot to help manage your growing or even some computer systems? Interesting question, Cricket Toll. But I think the gardening is one of my most enjoyable things to do to relax. And so if I am all about efficiency, that's why I do use the Midlighter gardening method and recommend that, and highly recommend the book, which it's called the Midlighter gardening method, the Midlighter gardening method book. Course book. And you can get that at LDSPrepperstore.com. But I see myself doing this physically, not with robotics, for next 15, 20, 30 years more, because I enjoy doing that. Okay. Have you grown zucchini vertical? If so, what support do you use? We have tried growing zucchini vertical. There are zucchini can be grown vertical. There are many different kinds of zucchini, and some of them vine better than others. Some grow more like a bush, and some grow more kind of viney. I haven't been really successful at growing zucchini vertically, although we have, and the zucchini, like pumpkins, have a very thick neck. Is that what you call it? Stem that comes off of it. And so what I will do is I'll just take some of that baler twine and make just a little loop. So if this is the neck, here's the zucchini hanging here, and I will just take some baler twine and just make a little loop around this and bring it up to the trellising and support it that way. And that takes the weight off the plant. And so I think Black Beauty is a vining one. I'm trying to remember. I don't think we have any zucchini in the garden this year.
Not yet. So there's, I can't remember if it's Super 8-ball or 8-ball.
Right.
Makes cute little round pumpkin shaped zucchini. That works really well vertically. And it's a fun little squash.
It is. Yeah, I forget about that. Yeah. Yep. I think it's called, Super 8 or Super 8-ball. Let's see. How do you block the cutworms? So that's a very good question. There is a very good section in the Midlighter Gardening Course book on controlling destructive. So I would take a look at that. I don't have one pesticide that thing. So I try to treat. Looks like we're having some video play problems here. It's really breaking up. I try to treat specifically for the problem, and so I don't know that I've dealt with cutworms, but I do have one thing that I use for all worms, and that is BT. Can you say that, what the word is? Bacillus.
Oh, Bacillus thuringiensis.
Bacillus thuringiensis. If you go to a real nursery and ask for BT, liquid BT, they know exactly what you're talking about. It's a worming product. And so uh, will that will stop every worm that I know of, and it's organic. It's a bacteria, so I actually never see worms in my garden. What I look for when I'm out there in the mornings is I look for worm poop, little tiny specks of poop. Once I see that, then I start spraying with BT once a week, once every 2 weeks, and I've never seen worms. And that takes care of cutworms, it takes care of cabbage worms, it takes care of tomato worms. There's a white moth that comes around. It's not a moth, but it's a white, kids call it a butterfly. And her job, I think, in life is just to lay eggs everywhere. And so once I also start seeing that white moth start flying around, do we have those in Texas?
Probably. They're everywhere. I can't remember.
Then I start spraying with BT, and that takes care of all the moth problems. So check that out. Get the liquid BT. Get yourself a pumper sprayer that holds a couple gallons, and spray your plants using that.
So, on with cutworms, something else that you can do is when you plant your plants, you can plant what's called a collar around a little ways out from the stem. So you take an empty soup can and cut the top and the bottom off, cut the can in half, so you've got maybe a 2.5, 3 inch high round cylinder, and you put that in the ground, plant the plant so that it grows up through that collar in the soil. Cutworms live in the soil, and they wrap their bodies around the bottom of the stem and eat it from just under the soil level. And you'll notice that your plants just start to wilt and you notice it has been severed. That's cutworm problem. So oftentimes you won't see the cutworms. You'll see the damage that they create. So if you can find them in the soil, you can spray them with BT. That will paralyze their intestinal tract and they will die of starvation. But these collars, any kind of collar that you can put around the base of your plant early when you're putting those plants in the ground, that's a really good way to mitigate for that pest.
Yes, and then Chris says, yes, those cutworms real bad here in Austin, Texas. Every time I try to grow squash zucchini, only get 1 or 2, and then the dies. That's actually not a cutworm if you're having the same experience that we had in Houston. You remember what kind of worm that was?
It's a vine borer.
Vine borer. And so the key to that, Chris, is be on top of it. Do not let the only way. So what happens with the vine borer worm is that an insect will lay an egg.
It's a black moth with a red spot.
It's a beautiful moth, okay? And you want to kill it when you see it, right? So don't let that moth in your garden. But it will lay eggs, and the larvae will grow, and then the worm will go inside the hollow part of the zucchini plant and live inside of there and eat the zucchini plant from the inside out. So again, as soon as moth season comes, as soon as you start seeing these moths flying around, spray your plants with BT, and you will be able to avoid that problem. Once you get one or two of those inside your zucchini plants, you're right, Chris, it's done for. I have injected BT into zucchini plants. I've cut off the areas and pulled the worms out. It just doesn't work. You have to be ahead of the game on that because there is no catching up. So I always have a couple bottles of BT in the greenhouse. That's kind of my go-to for other insects like
tomato worms. You talking about worms?
aphids.
Oh.
I'll use neem oil. I've tried other kind of oils, and those haven't worked well for me, but neem oil seems to work out very well. Let's see. Would making a net covering the plants help that issue? Probably. It would be very difficult for me to put a net up to keep the insects off my plants since I'm growing vertically. And that's also going to inhibit the beneficial insects from pollinating. So I don't know that I would put a net over your plants to reduce that, but you could certainly give it a try. There is a comment here. I've been watching before you made the dome aquaponics system. I moved since then. Any news on nice to see and I don't know what you mean by dome aquaponics system. I don't do aquaponics. I would love that if for aquaponics to work, but to me, it just doesn't make sense. It's very sensitive. Maybe you're talking about my geothermal system. If you're referring to that, please look into at my LDSPrepper.com YouTube channel and go into the playlist and look at the geothermal greenhouse list there. Okay. It says BT won't kill the microbes in the soil, or does it? I don't know if it does. I've used BT for many years, and I spray it on the plants, and it seems to work really well on the plants, and I haven't seen any problems with the soil.
BT is a bacteria suspended in a liquid solution. When you spray it on the plants and a tomato worm or a different kind of worm eats that plant, it ingests the bacteria paralyzes the digestive tract, and the worm dies. That's how it works.
Okay, so we're trying to handle go through the live questions here, and then others that have been posted. Weekly feed, does that ever over fertilize the plants? Weekly feed does not ever over fertilize the plants, but the gardener can over fertilize the plants by using too much weekly feed. So if you follow the instructions, we have grown every vegetable that I can think of that we eat in our gardens in Texas and Idaho, and we've never had a over fertilization problem unless I'm fertilizing too much. Now, the way that I can tell if I'm fertilizing too much is that the edges of the leaves will start curling up and drying up, and they look like they're not getting enough water. What's happening is and I noticed that our strawberries are the most sensitive plants to over fertilization.
They're very sensitive to heat too, and they get the dark brown burned edges on the leaves when it gets like 120 degrees in there.
Okay, like it was earlier this week.
Yes.
Yeah, we weren't there, but anyway, we made a phone call, and a very kind neighbor of ours, Eric, went over and opened up the greenhouse doors. For somehow they got closed. We were in California, and he went down and opened up the greenhouse doors, but apparently it was 120 degrees over there. But anyway, so when you see leaves burn, one of the symptoms of over-fertilization is that the edges of the leaves will start drying up, and it looks like it's from heat, but it's actually from over-fertilization. Now, it can also be from heat. So you have to kind of know what's going on in your garden, but just look at generally the plants will tell you if they need more, if they need less. And so I really feel that people who are good gardeners are really plant doctors, and they look at the symptoms, they look at the health of the plants, and then they make appropriate changes. But can the weekly feed over fertilize? Well, let's just compare this to putting manure in there. So the reason why the plants get dry edges is because of a salinity problem. There's too much salt in the soil. And so that salt literally pulls the moisture out of the plant. If you have a bowl of water here and a bowl of salt water here, and you put a sock so that's in between both of them, this bowl will suck the water out of this bowl because of the salt in it. That's what salt does. It pulls the moisture out. It'll just pull the water right out of this bowl, fill up this bowl. So that's same thing in the garden. If you have a salinity issue, then it's going to pull the moisture out of the plants. So let's compare this to using manure. Well, manure has, most people put manure on the garden who are also aware of possible, what's the disease you get from sickness?
E. coli.
Possible E. coli. They're basically trying to put a year's supply, a season's supply full of nutrients in the garden at once. And so they're putting in hundreds of times more salt in the soil when they put the manure down than we ever put in the garden with the weekly feed. And so you'll have more of a salinity problem, a adverse effect on the plants using manures than you will with the weekly feed, because we feed weekly because we put down just enough to last the week. So when someone puts in a bunch of fertilizer for the year, you have a lot of salt in there. So if you're an organic gardener, that means that you have to follow the federal regulations on being organic, and you have to put that fertilizer in there. I think it's
If it's
6 weeks. If the plants touch the
ground, I think it's 6 months.
6 months before you plant, and then if the plants don't touch the ground, it's 3 months.
3 months, 90 days.
So we're giving the plants the food exactly when they need it, and it's immediately there. That's why I like the weekly feed. And many people live in the city and they don't have access to horse manure or cow manure. I wouldn't use it anyway because of all the weeds and the diseases and the medications and all that I'm putting in the soil. I just like clean soil. So I have no worries. I've never had a problem with the weekly feed over fertilizing the plants unless I'm not following the instructions. If I see that is a problem, if there's a plant that doesn't want that much nutrient or is more sensitive, then I would cut back. So we typically feed our strawberries half the amount of weekly feed of the other plants. Okay, let's see if we got any other questions here. Randy, so Randy K says, where do you buy the magic underwear? Well, if you're interested in, we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and like many faiths, we have emblems that are meaningful to us. Just like if you would see a Catholic priest, he has certain clothes that he wears on the outside that, he's got a white collar and so forth that indicate that he's a minister for that faith, a priest. We have we have what's called garments. We just call them garments, undergarments. And when we go through the temple, and my wife and I were sealed, we were married in the Manti Temple in Utah. and we were married for time and all eternity. So we believe in a real physical resurrection after we die and after Christ comes. That we believe everybody on the earth will be resurrected, and that we will be judged, and that we are married forever, for all eternity, in that temple through people who have the authority from God to seal our marriage here on earth and in heaven. And when you go through that process, when you take out what's called an endowment, a gift, which is what we ordinance in the temple, we to help us remember those covenants, we have an undergarment that we wear. It's a temple garment, much like what other ministers or priests or pastors would wear externally. So we don't wear it on the outside, we wear it underneath our clothes. And so if you are interested in getting your magic underwear, just go to Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saint, churchofjesuschrist.org, and request the missionaries to come talk to you. They'd be glad to talk to you about our faith, our beliefs, why we believe that we will be resurrected. We believe that we came from our Father in heaven here on earth for a purpose, to grow, to learn, to experience, that we will all be resurrected regardless of your faith or anything like that. We're all his children, we'll all be resurrected. Then we will be judged by what kind of a person we were and what we did here on this earth, and we'll be rewarded for that, and we'll be able to live with him and our families forever. So if you're interested in getting your magic garments or your magic underwear, talk to a missionary of the Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints, and they'd be glad to answer any questions you have on that. Okay, so Becky and Quint Schoenberg, are pumpkins pruned the same as watermelons, or are they pruned more like cucumbers? Great question. I would prune my pumpkins, and I do prune my pumpkins the same way that I prune my watermelon. I didn't bring a Mid-Latitude Gardening Course book with me here at my father-in-law's house, but there is a section in there on pruning watermelon and pumpkins. And again, watch my video on pruning watermelon. It's the same way. Once you have fruit set, then you cut that vine that's growing past that fruit, and then that will concentrate all the growth from that entire vine into that fruit. So you may have 6 or 10, vines coming out from the center of that plant, and all of those will have one fruit on them, or maybe 2 at the most. But so you prune your pumpkins just like a watermelon. If you want to get the blue ribbon at the county fair, grow 1 pumpkin or 1 watermelon per plant, and all the energy from that plant will grow into that fruit. Make sure that you keep plant so it can do photosynthesis and process. Still waiting for the USDA to tell me what I can build my high tunnel. Good. I'm glad that you checked into the USDA. It's a great program. Wherever you are in the U.S., if you would contact your county USDA extension and ask them for the High Tunnel Initiative packet, then the USDA has a cost share program that will help you recoup some of your costs on your greenhouse. When I built our greenhouse through that program, the kit that I purchased was $2,500, and I got $2,800 from the USDA. I was the second person that year. There was only one other person that year who had requested access to that program, and I was approved. And now I think someone told me a few weeks ago that there were 30 people on the waiting list because so many people are building the geothermal greenhouses. So here in my area in Idaho. So take advantage of that. You've already paid the taxes. This is a great way for you to get some of that tax money back. and the government wants to encourage you to grow your own food. G. Michael Jr. says, do you need a license to operate a gyro plane, is what it's called, gyro plane? Or where can you fly it, flight plans, and so forth? So, great questions. You need a minimum of a sport flight, a sport pilot license that will get you up and flying. I plan on getting my commercial license and also my flight instructor license and being able to teach other people. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy sharing. I enjoy people seeing success and enjoying life. Flying the gyro plane is just one of the most relaxing things I've ever done. It's just serene, and it's just completely enjoyable. So I plan on doing it for myself and for others, so others people can enjoy the process too. All right, let's see. What is the link for the structured water device you talked about? So if you go back to my video, it says the screen says "Ask me anything." What color is that? Is that
Teal?
A teal screen that has the words "Ask me anything." There's a link in that video, but in the description, about the structured water devices. We have seen many commercial agricultural growers use structured water to increase their productivity from their fruits and vegetables 20% without additional fertilizer and so forth. The plants actually absorb more water when it's structured water. There is a link to a couple of them that I recommend, and I would encourage you to put that in your garden and in your home. If you guys have a lot of minerals in your water, it will save your pipes. It actually will clean out your pipes and get rid of the mineral buildup in your pipes. You'll have that kind of clean, very clean feel. It's not like what's your dad have here?
Soft water.
It's not like soft water where you feel slippery or slimy. It's not like that at all. You're not adding anything into the water. You're just structuring the minerals in the water so they don't bind and lock up with each other. If you've got hard water film in your showers and so forth, all this goes away when you have structured water. So take a look at that video and those items that I recommend there.
That's when we got ours.
The manufacturer was supposed to contacted me about getting one. Okay. Let's see. One of the one that you're purchasing is a one person or two person. It's a two person. It is a Cavalon. It's a Cavalon. You can see in the picture. It's made in Germany. It's a side by side. It's not tandem. It's side by side. It's very roomy. I'll put a link to below this video on more about that. But you can just search YouTube for Cavalon gyro plane, and that'll give you more information on that. Yes, God bless. If everyone needs solar, I can personally deliver nationwide. Also have battery backup. So there are a lot of companies out there that advertise for solar. I would do your homework. When I got our solar put in, I called 12 different companies. 6 of them had no idea what they were talking about. Literally, I mean, they were just literally order takers. I narrowed it down to the 6 that seemed somewhat competent, knew something. And then I had them give me specific make, model number of the items they were going to install. Half of those, so 3 out of those 6, was garbage, junk product. So those went away. And then I started looking closer at the 3 bids that I had and decided on the service that I wanted. Here in Idaho, Utah, West United States, Wyoming, Colorado, and so forth, Texas, I would recommend Big Dog Solar. Just, I believe Mike still works there, so if you call Big Dog Solar in Idaho and ask for Mike, he's a good guy and he'll get you taken care of. So I know from personal experience that I can recommend them. All right, so we have some more questions here. I know you mentioned about processed foods and about the body naturally healing itself. What is the Merck book for? So I think what he's talking about is, what is the Mint Lighter Gardening Course book?
No, it's the Merck manual.
Oh.
It's a reference manual that doctors use for different illnesses. I believe it gives recommendations on pharmaceuticals and what pharmaceuticals interact adversely. It's just a reference manual for medical practitioners.
All right. There's a question here from Charla Jensen. Sue, what do you feed your chickens and how do you store a year's supply of their food?
Good question. I wanted to feed my chickens because we are eating the eggs and eventually the chickens themselves. I don't want those eggs and their meat loaded with glyphosate residues or pesticide residues from the feed that they are eating. So I am very particular about what I feed my chickens. I source organic grains, whole grains, and I have my own recipe and put that recipe together in large quantities, store it in 5-gallon buckets, and then measure out half a cup of feed per chicken per day. And then they can have however many bugs or greens they want. They can have free access to that. So I can share that recipe. What, below or LDSPrepper store?
Yeah, we can put it below here. Yeah, in the description. So what's in that recipe?
So there's wheat, there is oats, corn, green lentils or red lentils work, split green peas. It's been a while since I put this recipe together, made a big batch. We'll also add flax seeds to that. And I will add what is it? It'll be in the recipe. It's like a multivitamin powder, granular kind of powder. It's got a lot of kelp in it. It smells like kelp anyway. So that kind of balances out the nutrition. I do have to add more protein for laying hens because they will stop laying if they don't have enough protein. So I am in the process of getting an underground worm bin going outside where I can foster the growth of earthworms that I can feed to my chickens. Right now I'm adding canned cat food to the bowl to increase the protein.
So some other things that she adds dried worms.
Yeah, that's kind of a treat.
Then
dried grubs or dried some kind of fly larvae.
And then they get fresh greens from the greenhouse every day.
Right. I add diatomaceous, food grade diatomaceous earth to their feed to deworm It's, I guess, it's for parasites or I guess worms.
Mhm.
Keep their guts healthy. I add nutritional yeast. I add garlic powder. I add cayenne pepper, and I add cinnamon. Just some herbs to help with respiratory and cardiovascular. Keep them healthy.
And then, well, I know when you make a salad and you cut the bottom off of the lettuce, you put that in
Yeah, scraps.
scraps.
Any
So
kind of
apples,
scraps.
you put apples in there too.
Sometimes when they start to shrivel up and
Okay.
I don't want to eat them, those go to the chickens. My daughter-in-law bought a watermelon a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't quite ripe when she sliced into it. They didn't want to eat it, so she brought it over, and the chickens, they ate that down to the rind. So leftovers, yeah. When you have excess eggs that are getting too old to eat, they get really thick and don't cook up well. So you can cook those up and feed them to your chickens. That's a good protein source, and it does not encourage them to eat their own eggs, which is a good thing. They will eat their own eggs if they are thirsty. They always have to have access to good fresh water if you want them to keep laying well. And if they start to get dehydrated, they will break open their own eggs and eat the egg white. They'll eat the whole thing, but they're going after the fluids.
So you can tell her chickens are very well fed. I don't think they'll ever die because I think they've already died and gone to heaven. So they have a very nice insulated and pine lined chicken coop. We've got a camera in there so we can watch how they're doing, what their activity is. They have wall heaters and radiant heaters in there that turn on if it gets too cold. They've got a nice run. She just bought another basically chicken house on wheels that you can move around. And
yeah, I originally wanted to have chickens to keep the bug and worm population down in the fruit orchard so that those bugs don't get into the fruit. So I have a very small, it's not a chicken tractor, but it's a chicken coop, but it is on wheels so I can move it around. Hopefully it's not too heavy to move around, but it's just big enough for them to roost at night. It's not meant for them to, it's way too small for the number of chickens that I have, if that's all that they had. But if they've got the whole orchard to free range in and dig up bugs and keep the weeds down, then all they need is a place to go for protection or for roosting at night. So that's why it's small and it's portable.
so you're going to be putting that into the orchard?
Mm-hmm.
So will they be outside of that during the day?
Mm-hmm.
So the electric fence will keep them in the orchard?
I hope so.
Or we'll have fried chicken.
We'll see. You got to give it a try and see what works.
Yeah, I wonder if the feathers are enough to keep them from getting shot. So they could go over the wire. We'll find out. We'll put them in there. We'll let you know how that goes. We have a 9-foot high electric fence to keep the deer out of the orchard, and we'll put the chickens in there and see how they do in there. Let's see some more comments in here. We've got a few more minutes. Comment here by Billy Bird Outdoors. Chickens will be worthless during SHTF if they are unable to live off the land. So in preparing for whatever may be coming or happening in your life, I would recommend that you kind of think about how would I live if I was living in a homestead in the 1800s and in Oklahoma or Kansas or somewhere like that, or considering the weather that you're in. Now, if I were living in a homestead in the 1800s and I had chickens, I know that here in Idaho, we have 9 months of winter.
Pretty much.
And so there isn't food out there for them to forage during the winter. And I can't just kill my chickens in the fall because that I would have to hatch more chickens, and the new chickens wouldn't lay eggs before I would kill them again. So think about what would you need for supplies for yourself and your livestock, and you're going to need to have some food storage for your livestock too. So
hundreds. They not only families but for their livestock. So I'm trying to move towards having my chickens free range and live off the pasture, live off the weeds, live off the bugs during the spring and summer. And that way I only have to store enough feed to get them through the winter. And if I have greens growing in the greenhouse during the winter, which I did this last year, then that just adds to their diet, and they love the greens. They absolutely love them, especially in the wintertime.
So Becky Quint asks, have you guys done or considered doing a video testing the Brix level on your produce grown with the Mittleider method? You know, as a honeybee keeper, we have a Brix test for that. We use Brix testing to see what the sugar level is and whether the honey is ready to be harvested. I don't use that because there are other simpler ways to tell whether the honey is ready to be harvested. You don't need to have a machine to tell you whether the honey is ready to be harvested. The bees have never used a Brix meter, and they know when to cap it, and when it's capped, it's ready to be harvested because it has the right humidity, moisture level, and so forth in it. So a Brix meter will actually just test the sugar level of a plant. It cannot test the nutrient level of a plant. So I have also purchased soil humidity testers to see how humid, do I need to add water to the soil? And after spending a lot of money and time in those soil testers, I found out that the best soil tester is for me to stick my finger in the dirt, and I can tell from the soil if it needs to be watered or not. So what I have found to be the best Brix level tester is putting the food in my mouth, because your tongue is full of sugar whatever taste buds that can taste salt and sugar and other things. And so if you pick a strawberry and it's sweet, then yeah, it's going to have a high Brix level. If you pick a strawberry that isn't ripe and you put it on a Brix machine, it's not going to have a high sugar level. So if you pick a tomato and it's sweet, or a squash, or my carrots are unbelievably sweet and just awesome. So I've tried machines to do those kind of testing, but I've just found that God built me as a plant eater, and I can pretty well tell from how to grow food and how, tasting food whether it's has a high nutrition value. We talk about these tomatoes in the grocery store that taste like cardboard. Well, they taste like cardboard because they don't have the nutrients in there that your body wants or needs. So I think growing with the Mittleider method, for sure, I know that all the plants are getting all the minerals that they need. And any other method, I don't know that's the case. So the best way that I know of to grow the food with the right amount of minerals and having all the minerals is with the Mittleider gardening method.
3 minutes.
Not learning wild edibles will be everyone's downfall when the preps are gone and no longer able to have a garden. You have to kind of remember, Billy, that the majority of people live in cities, and there is no foraging for wild edibles in the city. It's just not going to happen. And so, again, if you were living in the homestead in the middle of Kansas in the 1800s, Would you depend on foraging for edibles? No, you wouldn't. You would depend on your livestock. You would depend on your food storage, and you would depend on your food production. So what I recommend is that, and of course, learning wild edibles is awesome. It's just not practical for 98% of the population of the world. So it's a great hobby to have, but it certainly isn't life sustaining. I'm sure that if you were living in New York City and you had to live off of wild edibles, you would not live very long. So I encourage people to have a minimum of 1 year food supply, a minimum, and be able to grow enough food the following year to replace the food storage. So you're constantly adding back to your food storage while you're growing your own food. So just think about, what do I need to be able to store my food, and what do I need to be able to grow my food? And if you want to include wild edibles in that, that's a great idea. That there isn't a civilization anywhere on the planet that simply lives off of wild edibles. It just doesn't happen. And of course, there are not any in the winter. Okay, I would be thinking, how would I live if I was forced to live like a hunted animal? Yeah, that's one mindset that you can have. I certainly, that's certainly not the mindset that I have. Okay, I think we're pretty much out of time here. Thank you very much. We have some more questions. We will continue adding, going through the questions that we have from. So please post your questions down below. We do go back through them and take a look at them. Let's see. It says, Becky Quint asks, I think you helped with the new Mittleider Gardening Course book. Is there a section in there that covers the recommendations for berry bushes and fruit trees? Actually not, but in my LDSPrepper Premium Micronutrient Mix, I specifically added the instructions for that because it was not well covered in the book. And so my recommendation on fruit trees and berries is, first of all, we fertilize our berries like we fertilize the rest of our vegetable garden, because berries are they don't grow like trees. Trees grow very slowly, and they don't need to be fertilized as often because their life cycle is much longer. Berry plants, they produce, and then you have your old canes and new canes, or you know more about this than I do.
Yeah, for raspberries.
And blackberries and
blackberries.
Blueberries.
True.
Okay. So they have a season that they produce, and so we feed them weekly, just like we do all our other fruits and vegetables. We use the weekly feed, and then we also feed them monthly, as in our regular vegetable garden with the pre-plant mix. Now for trees, I feed our trees 4 times a year. I will feed them as soon as the leaf buds show up. I will give them a full course of weekly feed and pre-plant. The way that I determine how much I do that is, first I have a ring around the tree, or in my case, I have them in a half whiskey barrel. But anyway, and that ring should go out to the drip line of the tree. Then you take the diameter of the trunk of the tree, and for every inch of diameter, put in 1 inch of weekly feed.
1 ounce?
1 ounce of week.
You said 1 inch.
1 ounce of weekly feed for every inch of diameter. And then you put in 2 ounces of pre-plant mix, and you just sprinkle it on in the watering area underneath the tree and water it in. So you do that once when the leaf buds come out. The second time I do it is when the blossoms come out for the fruit. Again, I give the same application, The third time is when I see fruit, the blossoms turn from fruit, turn from blossoms into fruit. I will give it another feeding. And then the last feeding I give it is before it goes dormant for the winter. So in the fall, I will give it those 4 feedings. And that really, really helps with the production significantly. It helps with the health because the tree is simply healthier. It also helps deter insects from attacking the fruit because the tree is healthy. It's putting out positive vibrations, and it repels the insects. So that's how I feed the trees. The bushes, the roses, ornamentals, and so forth. All those instructions are on the package of the premium, the LDSPrepper Premium Micronutrient Mix, and you can order that at LDSPrepperstore.com. As far as herbs and understanding wilds and the weeds, you can also pick up all 4 of my wife's reference manuals. And what are those called? What are the names of those 4 manuals?
Medicinal weeds, first aid kit herbs, culinary herbs and spices, and making basic remedies.
So those are available in digital download, also in hard copy. Most people who get them probably 99% of them just order the physical books. We include shipping. We pay for the shipping for you on that. We pay for shipping on the LDSPrepper Premium Micronutrient Mix for when you buy 8 packages or more. Shipping on the Mid-Atlantic Gardening Course book is only, I think, $5, something like that. So it's pretty cheap. Okay.
Time to quit.
Time to quit. So Becky Quint says, thank you for your years of inspiration and education. Thank you very much for being here. I've gotten a lot of good feedback that people like these live Q&As. I'm blessed that my wife is willing to come in here and answer the questions that I have no experience in or very little experience. And I think it's a good balance from what I'm doing, what she's doing, and hopefully it helps you guys out too. So you guys all enjoy your weekend. Be healthy. Hopefully your gardens are growing well. Hopefully your food storage is going well. You made these a priority in your life so that you can provide for your family in good times and in bad times. This is LDS Prepper reminding you, if ye are prepared, you shall not fear. And the Backyard Herbalist saying,
Bye.
Goodbye.
I don't know. I don't have a tagline.
Something about healthy homestead.
Oh, maybe. No, I do have a tagline. Grow your own, make your own.
There you go.
Okay.
And I will put a link down on some, if you're interested in looking at some videos about the gyro plane, I'll put a link down below regarding that too. And we'll put down the meal recipe or whatever for your chickens, your food recipe. You guys have a great weekend. We'll talk to you later. Bye.